Hello and welcome to Horror Rewind. This is Kelly Florence.
And this is Mark Florence.
And today we're talking about The Lighthouse. Now this came out in October of 2019 and I really wanted to see it in the theater, but it was smack dab in the middle of when we were on our book tour. And so we didn't get to see it in the theater and I'm super bummed, but I'm very thankful that it was already on Prime so quickly and we could see it this month.
Yeah, when I saw the previews, I didn't know what to think. I didn't know if I wanted to see it or not, so I did not see it. And I regret not seeing it because it's pretty good.
I know, it totally blew my mind. Okay, so we should have known that it was great because it is the writer and director of The Witch, and that Robert Eggers, and he wrote this with his brother Max. Now, it is based on a fragment of an Edgar Allan Poe story or poem called The Lighthouse, and originally it was supposed to be a contemporary take on an Edgar Allan Poe story, but then they decided to go a different direction, and they ended up basing it on a couple of different things. So first of all, there's this writer named Sarah Orne Jewett, and and she's Maine based. They were able to take her literature and sort of create believable, I thought, beyond believable dialogue for these characters in this time and in this era. They took maritime and surrealist elements from the works of Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Herman Melville, and Robert Louis Stevenson. And then also, apparently there was a 19th century incident at Smalls Lighthouse in Wales that involved two lighthouse keepers, both named Thomas, just like in the film, that also inspired the film. So it's just just beyond amazing how they came up with all of these things and were able to connect it together. Now, just a quick side note, we always talk about at the top of the episode, it had a budget of $4 million. It made $18 million at the box office, and it is 90% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
Did you just say it had a budget of $4 million? What? Not even actors got paid? I don't know.
Yeah, that's not much, right? And guess what? They built the lighthouse from scratch.
I don't know where you got that information. Is that accurate? It seems wrong.
It's accurate. You can check it up and confirm it. Now, it was shot in Leif Erikson Park in Nova Scotia. We also have a Leif Erikson Park here in Duluth, Minnesota. When I read the first part of the sentence, I was like, wait, they filmed it here and I didn't know? But no, of course not. It was in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, just when you said that, I got excited, and then I was like, there's no way. There's no way. Leif Erikson Park is very small. It's in the middle of the city of Duluth, and I took Vienna on a field trip there.
So, yeah, they were not showing, or there's no lighthouse there, and we definitely didn't see one constructed to have this movie be filmed. Now, another cool aspect about this movie is that it is the aspect ratio. It's almost like a square type of movie, and the last movie that I watched with this aspect was The Devil's Doorway, which we recommend, and it's shot in black and white. There's a lot of sound effects of fog horns in the background, and also a lot of farting.
Tons of farting, lots of noises, not a ton of dialogue. Yeah, lots of guttural, weird noises.
Now, Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe are stuck together on this island. It's just supposed to be for a short period of time, of course, but things start going wonky, and it's already wonky the first time they have a meal together because Willem Dafoe's a little bit off.
So very, very interesting to me. The movie opens, they're on a boat. A lot like Shutter Island. They're going to an island, another island movie. But literally nobody talks. There's no dialogue in at least 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. These guys are just getting onto this island, walking around. doing stuff. There's no talking. There's farts before there's talking. So I just thought that was super interesting. So I was just like, nobody's talked yet. When's someone actually going to talk? And they finally talk when they eat dinner.
Yes, and so I mean, it's just atmosphere building and world building and character building with literally no words. It is a masterclass in filmmaking, if you ask me. Now, our first hint about a little bit getting into their characters, Robert Pattinson turns down the drink. And, we find out later, or it's implied, I believe, that he's sort of a recovering alcoholic and he's trying to be sober. So he's trying not to drink, and Willem Dafoe's like, no, you have to drink. But you know what I just read? So, there are some countries during quarantine that are being forcibly dry. Like, you cannot buy liquor in some countries. Can you imagine, Mark?
No, I would not. I would not function well in those communities.
And not to sound like alcoholics, but sometimes like it's something to look forward to at the end of the day is to have a drink, right?
Yeah, and these guys are literally quarantined on this island together. Like, their one thing to look forward to is their nightly dinner, which at the end, Pattinson's Defoe always cooks it, and Pattinson at the end says like his food's basically S word. So
yeah, but you haven't said that to me yet, so we'll see what happens. But we're only 3 months in.
Yeah, no, your food's great. Your food's great. I'm eating it. I'm gaining weight. I'm living a sedentary lifestyle, so I'm gaining weight.
I know it's happening to a lot of people, though. I think, so they are working at this lighthouse. We have several lighthouses by us. Like, we take for granted that we can literally, just drive down the street and see multiple lighthouses, and they're gorgeous. So apparently, the one that they built for this movie could shine as far as 16 miles. It could be seen 16 miles away. They built a lighthouse for this movie, and it still only cost $4 million.
I don't get it. Like, how much did Defoe and Pattinson get paid? Like $5,000 or something? Like, what happened?
I mean, maybe they took producer credits or something. I don't know. I have no idea. But it's sort of an independent film, and like, it's good. Like, I think actors aren't expected to make $20 million for a movie every time they make a movie. Sometimes they do it for the craft.
That's a good point. Like, I mean, they're both pretty big names, I'd say, and they both made like blockbusters. So maybe they just wanted to do a project for the art, Yeah,
I agree. Robert Pattinson finds this like mermaid, like statue or sculpture, or I don't know, knickknack, I don't know what you call it, in his bed. And then he ends up having a nightmare about a mermaid. That was kind of creepy.
So yeah, that was in like the opening scene when there's no talking. He's like getting up to his room, and he's like looking around his room. He looks at his bed, and there's like a hole in the mattress, like for doing stuff to the mattress. And he reaches his hand in there, and that mermaid was in there.
So he takes it as, I mean, I don't know what he takes it as. Later, he thinks that maybe it was a curse or something, and that he was being cursed because it was in his bed. I don't know, but I cannot get over the language, the dialogue, and just the writing and how well done it is. And so, seeing that what they went back to as their sources of inspiration, well done, because it seems so era. Like, I can't even imagine writing something this specific. And their dialect coach, like, good job.
Yeah, Defoe reminded me of like a pirate, like the pirate from The Simpsons. Do you remember his name? I don't know. He owned some restaurant, but in a good way. Like, it was really like authentic pirate, like guy who's just been out at sea his whole life, and now he runs a lighthouse. And Pattinson was a little bit more polished. Sometimes, he had like a kind of like a Boston accent, and so yeah, it was interesting, like the difference between the two guys both being stuck in this island together.
We find out during a conversation that the last keeper who was on the island went mad. And I wrote down foreshadowing ? And yeah, guess what? They absolutely going to go mad. And I was reading also about how a lot of time people in isolation, and we're going through this right now with a lot of people are during quarantine, just have these episodes of psychosis, and they literally do sort of lose their minds because you are either by yourself or you're just with someone else, and it's just sort of an echo chamber, and it can be really unhealthy.
Yeah, and it would be really hard to be just with the Defoe character. Like, this guy was pretty much like a huge dick to Pattinson. Like, he was the boss. His only real job was to maintain like the light in the lighthouse, and then Pattinson had to do everything else, and Pattinson was basically just like his bitch. So, like, he said Pattinson didn't like scrub the floor properly, and like he's like, yeah, sorry about the impression. He's just like, if I tell you to take up every board in here and clean it and then nail it back in, you'll do it. Whatever. So I thought, I don't know. Like, Pattinson was trying really hard and doing his best. So I thought Defoe was being a dick.
Oh my gosh. I would hate to be in this situation. First of all, to have a boss like that and there's nothing you can do about it. And also, like, they are stuck on this island until somebody comes to pick them up. And so there's no choice. Like, you have to try to get along at least. You mentioned as we were watching it, you're like, this could be a play. And I absolutely agree. Like, it's two people. I mean, like, you don't really need to have all of the, the big crashing waves and the lighthouse. I mean, you can allude to those things, but it really could be, I think it could be done on stage.
Yeah, and you could do it a lot through sound. Like, throughout the whole movie, the foghorn thing was going, like, the whole time. Like, it never stopped. So you could do it with a lot of sound, and I think it would be a good play.
I would love that. Now, Defoe is like, I'm sorry I'm using their real names instead of their characters. Well, they're Tom and Tom, so it'd be too confusing anyway. But he keeps telling him not to come up to the lighthouse. He's very strict about him being in there, and he has a key. Robert Pattinson is not allowed to go up there. Robert Pattinson one night, though, goes and peeks in on Willem Dafoe up there, and we see something like a creature slither. And it was like, wait a minute, is this real? Is he hallucinating? What the heck is going on?
Yeah, we don't know what's going on. I didn't know what this movie was, so I didn't know if like it was going to turn all like supernatural and weird or what was happening. So that was pretty interesting. It was like this big mystery of like, you cannot go up here, whatever you do, I do this, you stay down. So I think Pattinson got kind of obsessed with like what's going on up here and trying to figure that out.
Yes, as would anyone probably. Now, something that interesting that happens, and it's sort of like the moment that changes everything. Willem Dafoe tells Robert Pattinson not to kill a seagull or a seabird. Because it could be, it's bad luck or it's a harbinger of death if you do that. Well, he ends up killing a seagull, and in a really violent way. It was pretty gruesome, and everything changes at that moment.
Yeah, it's not just like he killed a seagull just to like kill a seagull. The seagull kept messing with him and like flying at him and like pecking at him and stuff. So. And then it was like a one-eyed seagull, which I thought was interesting. Like, to me, it could have been like a pirate, like, because a lot of pirates are missing an eye. No, or maybe they just wear the eye patch to avoid seasickness. But anyway, yeah, like the seagull seemed to have like a personal vendetta against Pattinson. So he fought it off, fought off the urge to do it pretty well. But eventually, I think a seagull ended up being in like where all their sewage was. But he didn't kill that one, did he? He killed like a different one? Or I don't know. Yeah, so there was a dead one in there, and we thought he might take it out and try to save it, but then another one came up, and he just like grabbed it and just kept bashing it. So that was pretty much like the turning point in the movie. Like, two days later they were supposed to leave the island, but then everything just turned.
And literally and figuratively, because as soon as that bird is dead, remember, Mark, they showed the weather vane on the top of the building and the wind changed. So they were supposed to get picked up. They're standing there in their slickers and their hats in the wind and the rain, and nobody's coming. We find out pretty quickly after, Robert Pattinson just thinks like it's the next day. And Willem Dafoe tells him, like, no, it's been weeks and nobody's come. And Robert Pattinson doesn't remember. Like, he's blanked it out or blacked it out. And they actually have been waiting for weeks. Like, what a plot twist.
Yeah, like, to me, that was really weird. Like, huge storm, you're waiting out there for a boat. It's obviously not coming. And then you really can't tell, like, whose perspective this thing's from. They're still doing their work, but this huge storm just keeps raging on, so you don't know if it's the next day or 2 weeks later. But yeah, I mean, I think Pattinson starts going off the deep end pretty hard after that.
Well, and their drinking is getting worse. I mean, they are drinking now a lot of time. They run out of alcohol and start drinking turpentine, right? Is that what it was? I'm like, holy crap. Like, I remember... hearing about alcoholics and like drinking rubbing alcohol in order to get, to feel something. And it's so extreme. I just can't imagine. And these guys, like, they are beyond. And the scene where they fight, where you were talking about when he tells them that his cooking is crap, like, they are so beyond at this point.
Great scene. Yeah. Great acting. A lot of great monologues or just like two-way dialogue. I mean, there kind of has to be. There's only really two people in this thing. But yeah, just the progression of Pattinson's character is pretty huge. Defoe doesn't change too much. He kind of takes a liking to him, and they kind of become friends. But I think what Pattinson finds his daily log, and it's like, he's talking all this crap about Pattinson, like he's not doing good work and he's whatever, and he's not going to get paid half his wages and all this. So Pattinson gets pretty upset about that.
And this progression, I mean, he is like going to kill him now, and they're physically fighting, and then he does eventually kill him, and then it leads to him burying him alive, and it is so gruesome and so realistic. Like, I don't even know how they shot this, because it appears that Willem Dafoe is still like saying his dialogue, and it's not like a dummy or something in there. Like, it is so, like, viscerally, I could feel this entire scene.
Yeah, I mean, that was like his Oscars monologue. I don't think he won one, but he's literally getting buried alive, and he's saying this. I can't even remember exactly what he was saying, but he had this great monologue as he's being buried alive, and there's dirt like being thrown into his face, and he doesn't even flinch. Like, he just keeps going. So, man, bravo, Defoe. That was great.
I mean, I think both of these guys should have gotten some awards. I mean, I don't know if we should look it up probably, but like the Independent Spirit Awards or something. But this movie really blew my mind, and these performances. And then the end sequence, like Pattinson is basically being left to be eaten alive. Something we haven't talked about is his backstory, that he ended up. They talk about whether it's he killed a guy or, I mean, he let him die. Either way, he could have saved this guy's life when he was logging with him, but he didn't. And so that's weighing on his conscience. And, maybe the guy, I feel like it was related to the one eye thing. Like, the guy came back as that seagull, and that's why he was messing with him. I don't know. Maybe that's just in my imagination, but I feel like, he was such an interesting character, and like their interesting little tidbits of backstories that we got, and how this ends, it is just beyond unbelievable. And like, oh my God, like the terrifying mermaid. So after we watched this movie, I told Mark, like, we need a palate cleanser, because like I can't even go to bed because I'm feeling so many things. And so like we watched a stand-up comic for a while, but did it make you feel as many things as it made me feel?
Yeah, it really made you feel like kind of like empty, strange. It made you feel all these like weird range of emotions. I know I keep reiterating this, but these island movies, there's like no way off the island. Like you're just isolated, you're stuck. So yeah, I think that's like, it's always this theme in a lot of these movies where you have to deal with it all because you can't get off the island.
I just think it's such a great premise and well shot, and it was so funny I'm happy that we watched this before the final episode of SNL this year. Kate McKinnon ended up doing a bit of a play on this movie, so she was kind of Willem Dafoe's character, don't you think?
Definitely. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that was a good bit.
So what else do you have to say about The Lighthouse?
I wrote down dog scene. Does that mean anything to you?
I can't remember. I know I saw that on your notes, and like, does a dog appear or something? I don't remember. I'm sorry. This was like a couple weeks ago now. Oh, our dog woke up when we said that. He looked over at us. I don't remember, honestly.
I think we should mention the actual mermaid. It was like Pattinson saw this woman like in the rocks, and he like ran out there, and it's like a really attractive like model, but it was like a mermaid. So I don't know what happened, if that was like a dream or if that was real or just another one of his like hallucinations.
Yeah, I think he was hallucinating. And remember when he broke that mermaid statue thing, and he's like, now your curse over me is broken and I know who you really are. I mean, he had lost it by this point, obviously, but it was just beyond. But
yeah, after Pattinson buries Defoe alive, he gets the key and he makes his way to the top of the lighthouse, and he gets up there and he's finally up there and he's basking in the glory, and then he opens the light and he looks in and it's just super bright. It's kind of like Pulp Fiction. You never see what he sees or whatever, and then basically in the next scene he's just laying out on the beach and there's like 20 seagulls just eating him. So
oh god, yeah, it was just gruesome. And so it's not scary in the jump scare sort of way. It's not scary as in like, oh, I don't want to go to bed because something's going to slither, onto me and wake me up or anything. It's more like this psychological terror, and also like this isolation. And not that we're going through anything like they are, but it's in a similar way. It's like, okay, we are doing the same thing over and over again, and it sort of feels like we have lost a sense of time, because sometimes it's hard to know what day of the week it is anymore.
Yeah, I agree. And like, it seemed like Pattinson did this. He didn't really fit the type of person that would do this job, but he did it to just try to like escape from whatever had happened in his past. And he was doing pretty well until he killed that seagull. Everything changed. And then he just started drinking too much and he started going nuts. The dynamic of their relationship throughout the thing was just crazy. Like, they hate each other. They're hugging in the next scene. They're like drinking all night. They're dancing together. They're trying to kill each other. Like, it was a very, very volatile relationship.
Yeah, I was also reading that a lot of people read it like subtextually as a homoerotic sort of situation. And I don't know that I got that. I mean, I could understand just if you have one person, you're alone with them all the time, how maybe various feelings will emerge, but just what a mess of a relationship, and what a terrifying ending.
Yeah, and then the storm like pretty much destroys their house, and it's just flooded, and they're just like drunk, like laying in their house, and there's just like 6 inches of water in there, and there's like no running water anymore. There's no clean water. It just seemed like the worst. Nobody's coming out to get them. They don't have any more rations. They're, like you said, they're literally like drinking turpentine. And like at the beginning of the movie, Pattinson takes a sip of whatever alcohol they're drinking, and he can barely even like, he starts coughing, and then at the end he's drinking straight turpentine.
Yes. I mean, truly, what a great analogy for his journey and how far he's come by the end. Well, let's rank this movie on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 being you hated it, 10 being it's a perfect movie. Oh, we have to think of a scale, Mark. I mean, like ladles of turpentine or seagulls or...
Yeah, I was thinking the one-eyed seagull. It's kind of...
Let's do the one-eyed seagull. How many one-eyed seagulls do you give The Lighthouse?
I'm going to give it 9 one-eyed seagulls. It was extremely good, extremely well made. Made you feel all sorts of stuff. Great performances by Pattinson and Dafoe, Tom and Tom. I don't know. I mean, I wish I had seen it in the theater. Probably would have been even more powerful, but I really enjoyed it, and I recommend it.
I agree. I'm giving it 10 out of 10 one-eyed seagulls. I literally think this movie is perfect. I cannot believe that they came up with this concept. They researched the way that people talked, this dialogue, how well it's written, the character development, the acting, how it was shot, the aspect ratio, the black and white. Like, give this movie all the awards. I know it's too late, but wow, it truly blew my mind. I am so thankful that we got to see it when we did, and like we didn't see it 10 years later and regret it even more.
Yeah, and I just thought of another scene that was a pretty powerful scene. Like, they were repainting the lighthouse, so Dafoe was holding Pattinson on a rope as, it was probably like 50 or 100 feet tall. And he's holding him on a rope, like painting this lighthouse, and he's like messing with him, like he's going to fall. And then he ends up falling. So it just showed like the power, like who had the power in the relationship. And it's like, why are you even bothering to paint this lighthouse? But whatever.
I know, it seemed sort of pointless. So we're going to be back in just a moment. Meg is going to talk to us about a book that she read lately. So Meg, take it away.
Hey Rewinders, it's Meg here with Spooky Book Corner, and I hope self-quarantine is going okay for you. I hope that you are, whether you're working or at having to stay home, whether you've lost your job or whatever's happening, I hope that you are practicing self-care the horror way, which means you're watching horror, creating horror, reading horror, and sort of letting creative worlds take over for right now, since the real world is kind of shitty. So I have been reading a lot. I find that reading is very comforting for me. It kind of helps take away some of the anxiety of the outside world. And so the book I'm going to talk about right now is The Last Book on the Left. It came out last month in April, and I loved it so much. And it is really a coffee table book in a lot of ways because it's so beautiful. If you have the chance, go just look it up. The illustrations, there's an illustration on every page, and they are, I believe the illustrator's name is Tom Neely. They are absolutely out of this world amazing. Now, this book is about serial killers, which of course is one of my favorite topics, and it is by the 3 hosts of the last podcast on the left, one of my favorite podcasts, Ben Kissel, Marcus Parks, and Henry Zabrowski. But what's important to note is they, in this book, do something a little bit different, talking about serial killers, which is what they also do on their podcast. And that is, they want to sort of take the mythos around serial killers away, and they want to sort of, I saw an article, and I thought this was a great way to put it, a review article about the book. They said they want to cut serial killers down to size, and that's really what they do, is they make fun of them. They point out that they're human beings, and any sort of pedestal we might put Ted Bundy on. He obviously does not deserve to be on. He's not, this mythical monster. He's just a jerk. And the book is very much in the spirit of the podcast. And what they do is they have 9 chapters about 9 separate serial killers. The illustrations are so gorgeous. They make me think a little bit of Mad Magazine because they're making fun again of the serial killers. They're cheeky. They have that cartoon vibe. It just for the illustrations alone, this book would be worth it. And there's some really funny ones. I mean, that being said, I have a very dark sense of humor, so that is necessary to have to read this book. And I think, if you're tired of reading about serial killers or true crime in a really dramatic, heavy way, this is the book for you, and also the podcast that you should listen to as well. That being said, there are some things in this book. It is, rated R, so to speak. There are things that you don't necessarily want to talk about. So, anyway, but that being said, there are things in this book that are hard to sort of contemplate. They do get into facts that are difficult. Also, what I loved about this book is I thought I knew everything there is to know about some of these serial killers, but I still learned some things, which was really fun. And also, there are a couple serial killers in there I didn't know as much, so that was great too. I read this book super fast. Again, it's just worth having out on your coffee table. It's just a gorgeous book to look at. It's hardcover, and obviously, if you're a fan of the podcast, you have to get this book. But even if you're not and you just enjoy learning about serial killers, you have to get it. It is cheeky and funny, but it also, it never makes fun of victims. It's very respectful. And just go out and run out and buy the last book on the left. You won't regret it.
All right. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed The Lighthouse, as I said, and we've been watching a lot of just sort of random TV shows and movies. We don't know what our next movie is going to be, though, that we're going to watch for Horror Rewind. So if you have something to recommend, tweet us, send us an email, talk to us on any of our social media, and we would love your recommendations. Mark, anything you want to say to the Rewinders?
Thanks for listening. I appreciate it. I'm trying to do a good job for you all, so thank you.
Wait, can I talk about the one review or not? So Mark read a review that somebody said he sounds like Pauly Shore, and so I'm sorry, Mark.
Yeah, I can't remember what movie it was from, but he had a good career.
He's an American treasure, right? Yep. We love you, Mark. Thank you for pinch hitting while we've been in quarantine, and even before, because it's been such a crazy year for Meg and I to get together and watch movies together. So we appreciate it. Until next time, we'll see you in the horror section.
Bye.